This is Cruise Radio.
Cruise Radio is brought to you in part by tripinsurance.com. Travel insurance done right by the people who know travel insurance. Get a quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio. Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio, a review of Carnival Celebration this week. And staff writer Richard Sims here with Cruise News. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug.
So we kick things off with news about a princess ship finally returning to service.
So last week, we talked about Regal Princess and the fact that it was having to cancel a sailing because there were technical issues which needed to be addressed. That canceled sailing turned into 2 canceled sailings, but as of right now, things seem to be progressing on schedule, or at least, maybe not the schedule that would have let them sail the second sailing, but at least on schedule that the November 10th sailing will be able to take place. Now, again, that's as far as we know right now. That doesn't mean that they can't, between now and then, change their mind. When we talked about this last week, we both kind of agreed that the future cruise credit being given to impacted passengers was kind of, cheap. At the time, they were getting a full refund, which is awesome. And then they were getting a 25% future cruise credit. And I was like, 25% just doesn't seem like that much for, having your entire vacation derailed. And apparently someone agreed with us because now they will be getting 50% future cruise credit.
Yeah, 25% is kind of tone deaf.
It really was. I mean, that's when you think about it, especially vacations that are canceled close in. It's one thing if they cancel something that's like 6 months away. I mean, it's still an inconvenience, and you're still probably going to run into some charges for if you've booked hotels and things like that. But there's a big difference between a trip being canceled 6 months in advance and a trip being canceled 2 or 3 days in advance. That really throws everything for a loop. So yeah, I think there should be a rule that if your cruise is canceled, you should, if it's within a month, you should automatically get 50% future cruise credit as well as a full refund.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Royal Caribbean developing Perfect Day Mexico, which is going to be down in Costa Maya, but we now know a little more to this story.
Yeah, it's actually taking some pretty big steps forward. So apparently, Royal Caribbean, it hasn't been official yet, but there's a few I's that need to be dotted and T's that have to be crossed. But basically, they are sort of buying the port of Costa Maya for $292 million. Now, the first thing I wondered when I heard that was, wait a minute, if they're buying Costa Maya, does that mean that all the other cruise lines that go there can't go there? And that's not what's happening. What'll happen is that when Royal Caribbean ships arrive to Perfect Day Mexico, which will be in Costa Maya, and think of it as when you're getting off the monorail at Disney World. If you go to the left, you're going to go to Disney World. If you go to the right, you're going to go to the parking lot. That's basically what's happening here. When you get off the ship, one side will basically be a pathway for Royal Caribbean guests to go to Perfect Day Mexico, which will, much like the first Perfect Day, it'll have water parks and restaurants and all that stuff. Other guests will not be welcome. It's like if you go on an MSC ship and it happens to stop in Costa Maya, it's not like you can just automatically go over to Perfect Day. No, you will go to the rest of the destination. They are, it sounds like, really kind of investing in building up the port a little bit, putting maybe some new restaurants, a new transportation hub, that kind of thing in. But yeah, it's coming together. Do you remember what's the opening date supposed to be for Perfect Day Mexico?
Scheduled to open in 2027.
They're saying that Perfect Day Mexico will be able to hold something like 21,000 people. Now, your first reaction to that is, wow, that's a lot of people. But then when you think that we have cruise ships that hold 6, 7, 8, 9,000 people, it's basically 2 of those.
And the next time you book a Carnival cruise, you might be greeted by a new and rather unusual mascot.
Yeah, this is kind of a fun story because over the past year or so, there's been a lot of talk about cruise duck. Some cruise lines, I think Disney in particular, has said, yeah, no, we don't want you bringing your cruise ducks on here. It's just not, it's not what we want. Other lines have sort of embraced it. Carnival has certainly been one of the lines to embrace cruise ducks. John Heald has said, no, bring them on and please don't be, and sometimes our crew members will find them and they like them. They won't throw them away. They keep them sometimes for themselves, but they're taking things to a whole new level because now they are going to have a life-size, well, not life-size, because I guess a duck is really very small, but a human-sized mascot. And Doug, can you guess what the creative name that this duck is going to have is?
Fun ship something? I have no clue.
No, it will be, and see if you can remember this in the future, Ducky the Duck.
Okay.
So I think that'll be pretty easy to remember.
Yeah.
Carnival has done this kind of thing before. I remember on one of my last cruises, they had a giant towel animal walking around giving people hugs and taking pictures and stuff. So here we will have Ducky the Duck. He has already been spotted on, I think it was Carnival Jubilee. He's very cute. He looks kind of like Donald Duck. The outfit he's wearing is a little bit like Safari Duck. If you've seen Donald Duck in the Animal Kingdom when he has the safari outfit on, Ducky the Duck looks a little bit like that. But he'll be wandering around and people can take pictures, and I'm sure they will happily sell you pictures if you don't have your camera ready. But I think it's kind of fun that Carnival is embracing this trend. Doesn't mean you have to have the nice thing is that they're calling it a mascot, but it's not like an official mascot. It's not something that they have to do for the rest of their life. It's maybe for 2 years this is popular and then we bench it. So I think it's a fun idea and I can't wait to meet Ducky in person.
And a discount was taken away. It wasn't a big one, but I still want to talk about it. And also, before we talk about it, I do want to say I didn't realize that you could join AARP when you're not 50. I did, and I've actually jumped on some of those gift cards.
The one thing I will warn you of is once you have joined, you're in a cult and you are never getting out. I have been trying to get them to stop mailing me stuff for about 2 years now. But no, I think every single day I get something from AARP. They must really want me. But so for many years, AARP has sold discounted cruise cards. So you pay a certain amount and you get a gift card worth a little bit more than what you paid. It's sort of like a bond. Think of it that way. Well, they're a little less valuable now because they are changing it. Like it used to be that for $90, you could get a $100 gift card. Now you're going to be paying $92. If you want to get a $250 gift card, it used to cost you $225. Now it'll cost you $230. If you want a $500 gift card, it used to cost you $450. Now it'll cost you $460. The increase is not that much. And to be quite honest, the savings is not that much. If you're buying a $500 gift card, you're paying $460, you're saving $40. But if you're buying like 4 or 5 of those, like to pay for your whole trip or your family's trip, that $40 definitely adds up over time. Of course, a lot of cruisers got very upset by this, thought that Carnival was sort of nickel and diming and, wait, now I'm only going to save this much money. But John Heald took to his Facebook page and made it very clear that Carnival has no control over the pricing here. These prices are set, and the discount is set by AARP. So, does no good to complain to Carnival because, they have nothing to do with it. But I don't think it'll do much good to complain to AARP either. But you can still get these gift cards. And for a lot of people, I know people who absolutely love these. Mm-hmm. They buy them for friends for Christmas. They buy them for themselves. And, I actually knew someone who had set up a plan basically where once a month, part of their paycheck, they would take and buy these cards. And eventually when they had enough, they would cash them in and go on a cruise. So there's still anytime you can get something for nothing, it's a good value. Yes, you're getting a little bit less than you did previously, but it's still something.
It's interesting, though, that you mentioned Carnival's John Heald, the brand ambassador, said they have nothing to do with the pricing, which I believe it is AARP, but also Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, they're still on there at 10% off. So,
good to know.
It's interesting
It's interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah.
I wonder how.
Could be a volume, maybe. Not really sure.
It could also be an experiment. Let's see how people react to this before we make the same change over on these other cruise lines. Sometimes people do that. They do in the world of the internet, we call it an A/B test. You put something on this, half of the site gets this, half the site gets that, and you see how people react. So it could be that.
Mark from Inglewood, New Jersey writes, I heard a rumor that Captain Kate is leaving Celebrity Cruises. Any details?
This is a rumor that has really caught fire over the last couple weeks, and I think I finally figured out exactly how it happened. So, Captain Kate, who I believe is she still on Beyond? Is that correct? I think it is. She has become, over the last couple of years, the most famous captain since Captain Stubing, who was not actually a real captain. I think the only person with wider recognition than Captain Kate might be Captain Crunch. Anyway, one of the things that Captain Kate does is a daily vlog of like her life on the ship, and talks about everything from the ports they visit to what it's like having a long distance relationship, to what it's like, on the bridge every day. It's a really, if you don't follow her on Instagram, I highly recommend it, because it's a really fascinating glimpse into life on the ship. Anyway, she recently posted that she was leaving, and that she was, going through all the paperwork of, when a captain steps down from, to hand things over to somebody else, they have to do all this paperwork, and there's a whole little thing where they hand it over. And I think that what happened was, people thought she was leaving for good. She's actually just at the end of her current contract, and the way it works is she has 3 months on, then 3 months off. She will be back in January, but people saw her talking about leaving and misinterpreted it as her actually leaving not only the ship temporarily, but the cruise line as a whole. Not true. I think Celebrity would do a lot to try and make sure she does not leave, because she has become in many ways sort of the face of Celebrity, in much the same way that John Heel, the brand ambassador at Carnival, is sort of become the face of Carnival. So yes, rest assured, she is not leaving. Well, she is leaving, but only for 3 months.
One thing we didn't cover this week, and that's Tropical Storm / Hurricane Raphael, because we recorded this early, as I am currently, when you're listening to this, on the other side of the planet. So with that said, staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, my friend.
Always glad to do it whenever the need arises.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
Tommy Casabona of the Always Be Booked podcast just returned from a cruise. It was a back-to-back on 2 different ships, 2 different ports, but it was Carnival Celebration and Carnival Vista. He joins us on the line to talk a little bit about the 2 and do some comparisons. Hey, Tommy.
How are you, sir? Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, man. Let's take a step back here. Give me some pre-cruise thoughts. What made you want to take this 7-nighter on Celebration out of Miami?
This particular sailing, it was really about the deals. When I just moved back to Florida from New York, I was kind of all over it. You just move before you get really into the employment situation. You have that little window, and ideally you want to sneak in some cruises. And yeah, they were giving out some good casino deals, so that's why.
Nice. So you make your way to Port Miami to embark Carnival Celebration. Now, when it was announced Celebration was going to come to Florida, to Miami, they did this big renovation to the cruise terminal. What did you think of that cruise terminal, and how was the embarkation for you?
It was great. Nice and easy as usual. Like I say, I usually get there pretty late, so there's not much resistance in the way of lines or anything. But Yeah, they kind of. Well, my first experience with the whole tablet thing and kind of like I guess the stand up high top tables for embarkation versus the desks. That was what went on there, and that was my first experience with that. Was on Version. They're doing that on Carnival now, so it was cool. Really, really beautiful terminal. Nice and smooth getting on board.
Do they have the drug dogs in Miami for that terminal?
Oh yeah, definitely. They were. You're always nervous when you see them because you're like, well, I don't have any. I know I don't have any drugs, but what are they looking for? What kind of signs are they looking for? How does the dog actually behave? But yeah, made it through. But yeah, they did have them. The canines were there.
How does that slow down Embark? Because I'm trying to think, like, you have all these people are already cleared to go on the ship, but then you're kind of funneling to get sniffed by a dog or dogs. How does that work? Like, is it every single person? So is it does it bottleneck there?
Yeah, it does bottleneck. They usually do it in groups. Like I said, with me, I my kryptonite on any vacation is waiting in long lines. I don't know. I guess that's just a patience thing, but so I'm there at the end. But yes, even though I do get there late, they tend to maybe put you in like a group of like 8 or 10, and then you stand there and they present the canine to you and he makes his rounds. And as long as the dog gives the all clear, we can move along. But I could see during high traffic, that 11 to 1 p.m. window, it probably is a disaster. Creates quite a cluster.
Yeah, I would think that too. So you make your way on board Carnival Celebration now. The ship you were on previously, Carnival Vista, these where you enter the ship, the atriums, totally different. So I'm curious your thoughts. So yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's quite a stark contrast from one to the other. Obviously, the Vista class, going the whole more traditional route of a regular atrium. You get a lot of your business you got to get done there, but then you have that bar. You have that, what is it? This Dreamscape, I believe they call it. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. But as opposed to Celebration, where it just seems like, whoa, it kind of hits you in the face with, something big is going to happen because they got the stage. You see the cable hookups to the aerials. You see the big, huge kind of auditorium theater setup. But then also, yes, you have your coffee shop. There's a lot going on in that Celebration atrium.
But also, we're just talking about bottlenecks with the dogs, too. And I feel like, when you're boarding a Carnival Vista class ship, there is a bottleneck because people step into the ship and they're so wow, they don't just keep moving. So it can kind of sometimes get cramped there. Whereas this one, if I'm not mistaken, I think the atrium for Carnival Celebration in that class, they enter from 2 different doors. And there's people that are kind of push you along to keep you moving.
It's true. I would say in any crew, a big tip I would give to any cruiser is, especially what you just described, but anything that goes on in the first 3 or 4 hours in a cruise, it could be a little, I want to say, frustrating. Think about the check-in process to a hotel. There are a little bit of hiccups. There's roadblocks on a cruise. There's more, you know what I mean? Kind of entering. There's a lot of steps you have to take. So I would just say, yeah, you got to roll with that. Just pack your patience for the first. Things will open up, things will smooth out, but for that first couple of hours, especially in that atrium, it can be a little like, you get a little kind of pushy. You want to move, you want to go somewhere, but there's lines, there's congestion. It's definitely a thing.
What kind of stateroom did you have for this 7-nighter?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, Doug. This was phenomenal. I booked the cheapest stateroom you could possibly get. Like I said, casino deal. Just get me on the ship. Just get me to the Eastern Caribbean. That's all I wanted. And I found out that, I knew it when I was checking in. The lady's eyes widened a little bit. She's like, oh, and she's like, deck 11 something. I was like, oh, 11. Deck 11 doesn't sound like the cheapest room on the ship. And I got a forward-facing, ultra large balcony.
Nice. Forward-facing. Love that.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it. Of course, you're not going to nitpick. It was just a free upgrade, so it was phenomenal. But yeah, you do have all the space you need out there. I spent a good amount of time out there. They had to put the little wind guards up too, because you're going head on into the wind.
Now for the food, of course, Carnival has the Lido Deck Marketplace there on deck 16 on Carnival Celebration. And not just a Lido Deck, you have a bunch of like little food stalls around there as well. And of course, Guy's Burger joint up one deck on 17, which is a departure from the other Carnival class of ships. How was the food on board? And did you find that the Lido area got crowded during your voyage?
Celebration was a story of crowds and lines to me in general. If we're talking specifically the food, yes, forget. I mean, Guy's Burger, it was out of control, really. Not to, first of all, talking with the Lido Marketplace, they have downsized that significantly. The options that used to be available to you definitely aren't there as much, at least on these newer class of ships. It's been a while since I've done kind of like one of those retro Carnival ships. I don't know if they've all gone across the board, but now there's a trade-off. You know what I mean? There is so much. I say it all the time. Carnival is too good to us. I don't want to say that too loud, but they are. When it comes to giving us free complimentary grab and go food, there are so many options. So because of that, because you have options like the Carnival Deli, because you have Shaq's Big Chicken, you have the Blue Iguana, you have Guy's Burger, and then the street eats that they have right there. And then go as far as to even go down in this atrium, you have the sandwiches that are available at the cafe. They really, it is an embarrassment of riches when you're talking about the complimentary food that Carnival's going to give you. And the pizza, the Carnival, the deli that goes on right next to, what is it, the South Beach Pizza? What is it called?
I think it's Miami Slice.
It's a lot. So I cannot complain whatsoever with how generous Carnival is with grab and go food.
Do you think they do a good job with crowd control, having the two food areas 8 decks apart?
Yes, and slightly no. I'll give the contrast there a little bit, is because I do feel like operating times come into play a little bit, and it does get a little tight. They have this whole thing with the pizza. There's some sort of system going on where they just do a whole full cook of all the pizza, and then they're not cooking, they're just distributing. And then once all that pizza is gone, what they do is do a recook. So there's a mile-long line that gets to accumulate while they're doing the recook, and then they do it all again, as opposed to just having some people back there that continuously, I don't know what that is. So I think it probably does help, but it doesn't mitigate all lines. There are definitely lines across the ship, and that was the issue with Celebration in general. I feel like there was just a lot of hurry up and wait going on.
Did you do any specialty or the main dining room?
And again, continuing with it's just embarrassment of riches with what they offer as far as complimentary. At that time, Shebang was still complimentary. And I believe it's just you could do that once per cruise. They change these policies so often it becomes a little bit hard to keep track. But yeah, I did Shebang, and I believe I did sushi one night.
How was the sushi on board?
Good. I love it. A la carte. It's a good deal. It's always fresh. I always used to worry about sushi at sea unless it was on the first day or two. But no, they re-up when they're in port, right?
You went to Chibang. People call it Asian Mexican fusion. I don't know what kind of food or how you would describe it. So talk to us about it.
I think the term fusion can't really be applied, because I think that means when they're kind of like mixing the dishes and they got a little touch of Mexican and Asian in the same dish, and they give you that experience. But that's not what this is. There's an Asian side, and then there is, and I think it's Chinese, right? I believe it's Chinese, if I'm not mistaken, and Mexican. And it was good. It was definitely good. I enjoyed it. It was completely free. I think I got like a appetizer. I think I got a taco, and then I got an Asian dish. I'm not 100% sure what I got, but it was good. It was definitely good. The service was good. I loved it.
What did you think of the entertainment on Carnival Celebration?
Entertainment is a very broad topic. So there's different forms of it. I think Carnival is second to none, and this ship was no different. When you're talking about stand-up comedy, Carnival absolutely nails the stand-up comedy every time. They do a great job when you talk about your roving musicians, whether it's the solo guitar player. The piano bar is always a huge hit. From what I think. I don't love the fact that every cruise has that house band which can kind of play everything from 1950s to 2010 pop. They could do it all, and it's usually like a 4 or 5 piece. They have that on this ship, but they kind of bury them all the way back in the summer landing area, and you really have to kind of find them and go back there and really go into this giant room, which I love the room, but I don't love it for the band. So the band was good, but I didn't love that part of it. And then, yes, the shows. The shows, I'm not typically so someone who's I can't miss the shows. I can skip the shows on any cruise, but I did do a couple of these, and yeah, I just don't understand the Celebration Central atrium slash theater slash coffee shop concept, plus the fact that you design a room to do aerial shows when you're basically sitting with a low ceiling on the main level where you can't even really look up for half the area of which they're performing to. So I think the shows are great. The talent is out of control. I just think the configuration, it's almost like a little bit of a hedge. I don't know what your feeling on it is, Doug, but like, cruise ships, I like cruising because it always made sense. You know what I mean? Everything was where it was supposed to be. You have this going on here, this going. Now, is this the main theater? No, but you have another main theater, which is half the size of the normal main theaters, but it looks like a main theater, and they do shows in there too. So where are we going? Where do we want to be? And I think I think it's a little bit of overthinking on the part of Carnival, if we're going to nitpick, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember doing the Transatlantic. There were tons of shows, well, in both venues, the theater but like the variety acts and the aerialists and stuff were done in that central atrium there. And if you're on 6, forget about it, because you had those low ceilings there. You had to definitely be on 7 or 8, like in the stadium style seatings they have there, going from 7 to 8 outside the casino in order to actually see anything for the most part.
Right. And they have these dramatic performances going on where these aerials, and you're supposed to be quiet with the oohs and the ahs, and you're really supposed to be hyper focused on this show. And you just kind of detailed what the problem is with the first level, plus with the fact that it's a segue area. It's like almost like an atrium, which is almost like a lobby. So people are ordering coffee, people are walking through with bathing suits on. There's a lot going on, but then at the same time, there's this dramatic performance. And then what you talked about, I guess, deck 8, that would be a nice deck to watch the show on. But there's how many rows? There's like 3 or 4 rows only. So it's a little tight. And then you go up to deck 9, and then that's not the bet because you really have to look down to see what's going on. So I just think there's again, it's a beautiful ship, and we're nitpicking totally. I've never had a bad cruise, but if you're just going to, I guess, objectively give a couple of critiques, those would be them for me.
Well, I mean, you're nitpicking, but also if someone, it's good for someone to know that, hey, if we're sailing Carnival Celebration and we want a good seat, we better either go to this deck or get there early on, to get a seat on deck 6.
Yeah, which is what I despise. What I like about cruising is being able to kind of go wherever I want. I mean, like I said before, it's like, they make these ships bigger and better and overall more evolved, but who's reaping the benefits? I could tell you right now, on the older Carnival ships, when you could just file into that big theater with that spacious area where every seat has a drink table, and I just loved it. It was like perfect, and you could come and go as you please. I don't want to necessarily have to think, geez, I want to see this show. I better get there 45 minutes early.
The Punchliner Comedy Club is another spot where space becomes an issue. Did you get to check out any comedians on this sailing?
Yeah, there's definitely space issues, but I think I think they just did a good job with the comedy. You know what I mean? I think the comedy room is supposed to be, I don't have a problem with the size of the comedy room, okay? Because it's comedy, stand-up comedy is supposed to be performed in a little bit of an intimate venue. So that, in that regard, you just got to battle it out. And they also were conscious of that by also doing some of the shows in the limelight. And sometimes Carnival's gotten so good with the stand-up comedy, sometimes they do it in the main theater, sometimes they do it in the Punchliner, which is the comedy club, and sometimes they were doing it in the limelight, which is the nightclub. So I don't have a problem with the comedy. I just think that's a matter of comedy on Carnival becoming so popular that it becomes a little bit tricky, but I don't necessarily think they should have made that room any bigger.
How did the sea days stack up with crowds and congestion?
Yeah, my biggest issue with this ship, and I guess I'm coming off as a little bit of a complainist, maybe, but I don't mean to. If you've heard me before, if you heard my podcast, I'm absolutely in love with cruising. But again, what we do is we criticize and we analyze. So on this particular ship, it just seemed like Carnival. When we went on, Doug, right? You did your transatlantic, and then me and you, we went on the Christmas cruise. I think on those 2 cruises, it was still the love fest. I think Carnival was still really trying to put its best foot forward. So you had the A team when it comes to staff. You had everybody friendly, on their best behavior. You probably had some executives on there making sure everything went the way it was supposed to go. So I was fine with those sailings. And I think maybe as things kind of moved along, and then they moved along to the Jubilee and other things, I think the ship itself got a little exposed for having maybe too many moving parts. And I could tell you it was just the vibe on the ship. It just seemed like there was a level of frustration with the passengers that kind of affected the whole vibe and the mood. It was like everywhere you went, it was hurry up and wait. You know what, guys, is packed. Can't get in. Let's go to Shaq's Big Chicken. Oh, well, that's around the corner too. You know, and then so you had to really make a lot of concessions. And this is the first cruise ship where I would base what I was going to do on actually where I was on the ship, knowing that it would be a real kind of cluster to try to move from one end of the ship to the other because of those crowds. So yeah, just a lot of lines, a lot of crowds, and you really, really had to pack your patience. And that's just me being honest. You know what I mean?
No, I totally get it. So on this cruise, you had Amber Cove, San Juan, and St. Thomas. Now, I know typically in St. Thomas, you like to get off the ship and grab your coffee at that place you've been going to for like a decade. Is that still the tradition?
Badass coffee, unfortunately. No more in St. Thomas. But listen, St. Thomas is always my favorite place to go no matter what. I like to do those, those wild little safari rides with the loud music and the mountaintop crawls and stuff like that. But this time was the first time I ever actually went to St. John, and what a beautiful place that is. I was able to snag one of the final spots on the ferry, and it's a little bit of it was more of a thing to get out there than I expected. It was a rough ride, first of all. So it was a nice big ferry, probably a couple hundred people were on it, but it was a bumpy ride out there. But once we finally got out there, I hit that main strip, and I just, channeled my inner Kenny Chesney vibes and had one hell of a time.
Going to St. John without doing an excursion is like the Great American Race. You're having to go from the cruise port, take a cab down to Red Hook, take the ferry across to St. John, and then hope you can get a seat on the ferry coming back. And yeah, it's one of those ports where if you don't know what you're doing, you probably shouldn't, or go with people who do, or just book a excursion to St. John through the cruise line.
Absolutely. And just another caveat to what I did when I was there. I have all these people when I was at work, I would always kind of like watch. And we all love cruising, and I maybe take it to another level, but we're at work and I got like 6 people in my office with me, and I put on the YouTube screen. I just kind of monopolize it and put on the Cruise Bay Beach Bar for St. John. And I have that going, and everybody was like, what are you doing, Ty? Come on, let's watch the news, watch something else. I'm like, no, leave this on. It's just good vibes. By the end of like the first week of me having it on, everybody in the office is like loving it. They're like pointing, oh, that's that bartender. She's back. Oh, that's a regular over there. They're like kind of calling everything. So for like a good 6-8 months, we just kind of like have this thing on in the office. And it was such a surreal experience to get on that ferry, get off the ferry, and kind of walk in and sit there at that bar. And we had the moment where everybody in that office was like, oh my gosh, you're there. We see you. And like, it was great. So it was just kind of surreal. The staff was great. It really did live up. Now I was a little hungover because I got after it the night before, but I still enjoyed it. Cruise Bay Beach Bar in St. John is a strong recommend.
And then over to San Juan, Puerto Rico. How was your day?
It was great. I met up with our buddy Tony, and he was, we had a nice little walking tour. I don't think I've ever done anything. Maybe 8-9 trips to San Juan. I've done the same thing every time and just walk that beautiful city, enjoy the forts, get some food, enjoy the world, the birthplace of the pina colada. And just take it in. I love San Juan. If you haven't been there, you don't really have to do much. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Just take in that really old city and the cobblestone streets and everything. You love San Juan, don't you?
Yeah, my buddy Joel from college lives there, so we've done that a couple of times. Or just take a walking tour of the city. We went to, what is it, Barrachinas? Is that what it's called, with the first pina colada?
Yeah, Barrachina, but then we ended up on that one like right by La Perla. What's the name of that other one? That 3-level one where things got a little, everybody.
Yeah,
we were having fun up there.
Yeah. Forgot about that one. After San Juan, Puerto Rico, you had a day at Amber Cove, which is Carnival developed that back in 2015. So, wow, going on a decade now of being open. How was your day there? What did you do?
It was good. I used that as a content day. I really wanted to get a nice little tour. I try to get off the ship and maybe get a real good, bird's eye view of the whole island, do a little walking tour. And that was great. I did have a couple of cocktails, that little restaurant that's right there. If you know that Amber Cove sign that you see when you're sailing into the port, there's a restaurant right behind there. The mofongo there is out of control. They got a nice little band. I recommend that restaurant. It's in a cruise port. So is it going to be the most authentic, Dominican food? I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know who's cooking back there, but it really does hit the spot for me every time. Absolutely delicious. And then, they have a really cool bar. They make you earn it. So you got to walk up these hills, and they got the little steamers as to cool you off as you're walking up, but you make your way up there. Really nice bartenders up there. They make nice, they know what you went through. So they reward you a little bit with a stiff drink, but then you get this beautiful view. You can overlook the cruise ship and the whole port. It's beautiful. That's a place where they have that swim up bar. Well, downstairs, down on the regular level, they have a swim up bar. And it is a typical cruise port. They're not blowing you away with any crazy experiences, but it is nice. There's some, they turn the fort. There's like a little fort looking gift shop type thing. They have the zip line that goes over the pool, and they have a nice little nature path if that's your thing too. Obviously shopping. So Amber Cove's beautiful.
You wrap up Amber Cove, you head back to Miami. How was the debark?
No problems whatsoever. It was nice and smooth. I love nowadays how it's just the facial recognition, just getting off the ship. It's really, really sped things up. Back in the old days when you had to pull out your passport and they examine it, ask the questions. What did you have? It's nice and easy now. So there were no problems. And I, being kind of like 45 minutes to an hour away, I just park. There's a lot of people say, use the Bright Line, take the train. It's just eliminating the steps, like you say, little planes, trains, and automobiles thing. It's just very, very convenient to get off the ship with your luggage, self-assist, get in the car. You're home. You're in your home in 45 minutes. Yeah. If you're lucky enough to live in the Sunshine State.
With every new class of ship, there is a little bit of a departure from the last one. What major changes have you noticed on this one, considering you've been sailing Carnival for over a decade now?
So I just think, like, getting off the Celebration, I was a little bit discouraged. Like I said, I've never had a bad cruise. I just know that there was it was a little frustration. It was just like getting through the ship, navigating around. And it was like, do I need a break from cruising a little bit? Because I was just like, and then sure enough, that feeling of needing a break from cruising lasts about 5 minutes of you being off of a cruise ship. So lo and behold, I booked the Vista a couple of weeks later again. And I'm not some ultra wealthy guy. Just sometimes these casino deals come in. And if you're lucky enough to live close enough to the port, you can take advantage of them the way somebody from, Ohio may not be able to. So I get on Vista, and the minute I got on Vista, Doug, I was like, no, you are not sick of cruising. You are absolutely still in love with it. And it was just it was so much more of a personal touch. I just equated to there's just so much going on Carnival Celebration. Is the staff a little overwhelmed? Are they trying to feel the stress of kind of like managing all these moving parts? You got roller coasters, you have all this stuff happening in different venues and different features. When I got on Vista and I went to that Carnival Deli, and I just expected to just grab my sandwich and go, and the gentleman behind the desk said, "Here you go. Hope you enjoy your sandwich." And as I'm leaving, he's like, "Hey, welcome on board. I really hope you enjoyed this cruise." I was like, whoa, this is all right. I'm back home now. And just, the venues, going from venue to venue, I think there is, I guess, what do they call it? The law of diminishing returns. Like when you put so many bells and whistles, it can confuse the regular flow of what you love about cruising. And I was just so happy to be back on the Vista, which, had a regular atrium, regular venues, everything that you were always used to. Yes, it was a more upgraded and modern version because it's not an old ship at all. I just enjoyed it a lot more because it was a reminder for what I like about cruising most.
I'll preface this next question by saying I realize everyone's in business to make money, but do you think there's a point, or do you think we've reached the point where cruise lines are putting way too many people on board? And I'm not just talking about Carnival.
Yes, I think it's some level of that. And then also putting these crazy wild features on these cruise ships that, yeah, they're meant to, and yeah, I think it is across cruising in general. You're hearing a lot of that with, and I have no, somebody emailed me, what's your hate on the Prima class with Norwegian? I'm like, I never said I hate, I never been on a Prima class ship, but I just know the feedback that was coming off that was people were saying, they built all these beautiful venues, but nobody was able to get into them compared to like how many people were on the ship. They couldn't enjoy them because the venues themselves were a little too small. And I just think, yeah, while yes, you want to elevate the experience so much, what you said is part of it. Yeah, trying to ram so many people within a certain amount of square feet, but then also having these crazy features. But when you do, let's just say a virtual reality ride or something, you're not gonna be able to cater all of it to the 4,000 to 5,000 people that are going to want to enjoy it without there being a whole lot of waiting around in line. You know what I mean?
After doing the two, especially Celebration, has your view on Carnival changed at all?
No, Carnival, I'm still going to call them my favorite cruise line, and I think it really did take a good, 15 years, 40 plus cruises to decide that. I just think Carnival really does, for what I like to do in cruising, offer great nightlife, great entertainment as far as the roving entertainers and stuff like that. I just love Carnival and the vibe and the feel of a Carnival ship. But that didn't. I just think the Excel class, they made a couple of mistakes. Now, Carnival Vista is not without issues either, because I do like the nightlife. I do like going out at night, and there is something to be said. And being in the nightlife business and hospitality business, I know how a nightclub is supposed to be designed. And, I think they originally wanted to do the nightclub in the main theater on Carnival Vista, which just clearly was not going to work. I think that's why they put those movable chairs in the middle, because we'll just move. No, it didn't work. The vibe it just didn't work. So then they had to move it to the Limelight, and the Limelight doesn't work as much either. It works better, but it doesn't work either because they didn't put a bar in this. Now there's a rollaway bar fueling a whole entire nightclub full of people. So it didn't change the way I feel about Carnival. It definitely showed me that, just being straight up and honest, that the Excel class may not be my cup of tea. I'll say one more thing too, and that I think the Carnival Vista, the Vista class, Carnival in general, classic Carnival ships, they're built to really embrace and engage with the staff. For instance, two things: the Serenity Bar. On the Excel class, they built this beautiful Serenity Lounge and all this. The bar is a stand. You're meant to walk up, get your drink, and leave the bar and make room for somebody else, as opposed to on Carnival Vista, where they have seats and they have bartenders where you're supposed to interact with. And maybe you spend half a day sitting at a bar stool at the Serenity. Same thing with the atrium. The atrium on Carnival Vista was so much fun, such good vibes, such good energy, an absolute blast. You wouldn't think an atrium of a cruise ship is the funnest room, but it was on Carnival Vista. But what did that lead to? Oh, look at that. You know what? They like the entertainment in the atrium. So now what? Let's jump the shark and build a whole fancy stage and, multi-level real show experience, which you didn't need to do that. You went a little too far. So I guess to answer your question, as I'm long-winded as usual, I'm saying that the Excel class is probably not for me. I'll gladly go back to the Vista anytime.
I know you recently spent some time on Icon of the Seas, Royal Caribbean's newest ship down there in Miami. And I'm curious, as you were walking around, did you find or did you see anything that you were like, you know what, this could work on Carnival if they did it this way? Now, granted, Royal Caribbean has a decade or actually over a decade of mega ships, but I'm curious of your thoughts.
One thing that I could tell on Icon was they were very smart with the flow. Every single venue that they had multiple areas where you can enter and exit from. So that clearly would help with flow. Now, that ship is just a different thing. I kind of got the same vibe on that ship. I don't know if that ship is for me too. I did not sail it. I took a travel agency media tour on it, whatever it was, and when people were kind of dubbing it "People's Lasagna," it really was overwhelming. You walk around that ship and you got slides that are over your head when you're just trying to get from one place to the other. There's so much happening. I could see some areas of that ship that are, I mean, tailor-made for me to enjoy. I would love to be in that English pub. I would love to be in that overlook area that's right in front of the Aqua Theater. So, but I mean, yeah, I could tell you right now that main atrium, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then this, it really does take you away. To me, it doesn't lend itself to feeling like you're on a cruise in that main atrium. So I think, yes, flow wise, they probably, like you just said it perfectly. I never thought of that with their decade of experience in doing mega ships, it makes sense that they would have a little bit more experience in managing that. But I do think they probably are going to suffer from some of the things that the XL class does, in that, how far are we going to go with these cruise ships? What are we? I mean, can we just remember that there's a beautiful ocean out there and let us connect with that a little bit too? And it's like, I like the whole thing where you're traveling with a band of crazy pirates and fun people that you'll meet. I saw you yesterday. You get on the Icon, you're going to meet somebody on day one. You may not see them again. It's just become less personal. And naturally, what will also happen is it'll get less personal with the staff too. I think people love that about cruising. They love connecting with their waiter that they see every day. They love connecting with people you see on these bigger mega ships. It's much more just kind of like churn and burn. Get you a drink, move on. Get you a drink, move on. That's just human nature. That's just the way it is, and the result of what happens when you build these monstrosities.
All right. In closing here, final thoughts of Carnival Celebration.
Carnival Celebration, I would never turn down a cruise on Carnival Celebration. I loved it. I think you will love it. You should try it. Maybe it's not for everybody. I think if you're going to give me a choice, I'm going to go with a slightly older ship and a slightly more, I guess, ship with a little bit more personality, and a ship that allows you to connect to the sea.
Not that you asked, but my favorite will always be the Spirit class.
Joe Farkas he had a vision on that cruise ship and on that class of ships. And really a lot of conversation pieces on those ships. I agree with you.
Tommy Casabona, where can we find you?
I have a little podcast called Always Be Booked. It's also got a YouTube channel, Instagram. Everything I do is based around that. Always Be Booked. Thanks for having me, Doug.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,